hello, if you're watching live or the replay. I don't do any live, so this is fun. It's been a little adventure already using phones versus like a webcam or a computer. So if you're watching live, definitely drop a hands up emoji, a hi, where you're watching, listening from. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments box and we'll answer them throughout. If we don't get to them, I'll just reply after the fact to you. And if you're watching the replay, same thing. Drop any comments or questions you have, and I will reply to you in text or we'll do another live. And yeah, so I have Jess DuBose here. She is an ADHD coach. And Jess, I'll let you introduce yourself because you know you the absolute best.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Jess DuBose, ADHD coach. I live in Portland, Oregon. I've been coaching I've been coaching my whole life. I just didn't know that's what coaching was, until, like, I think I learned about coaching in, 2017, and that's when I, looked into it and then got a certification, immediately. And so I started my business in 2018, floundered around a little bit trying to figure out who I wanted to coach, and then I landed into ADHD coaching a couple of years ago. What is a little unusual about me is that I'm an ADHD coach who does not have ADHD. So I get asked all the time, what? So I like to share a little bit about my ADHD journey. Um, it started when I was in college. I have a degree in education, and I had a professor who did an ADHD simulation. And yeah, so into the classroom and all of these things were happening. Um, someone was vacuuming in the hallway, the lights were being turned on and off. People were sneezing excessively loudly and getting up to throw away trash. And then someone had an Aflac duck in the middle of class. If you don't know what Aflac is, it's an insurance company, and their mascot is a duck. And it says Aflac in the most annoying voice ever. And so it just kept going off in the middle of class, like Aflac in the background. I'm like, what is happening? And then the professor just started going faster and faster and faster through the slides. And I threw my writing utensil on the table and crossed my arms. And I was like, I cannot learn in this environment. What is going on? And then he stopped and he was like, people with ADHD, it's not that they can't pay attention, it's that they pay attention to everything. And that was such a huge reframe for me because in 2008, all I knew about ADHD was people can't sit still, can't pay attention. And so I was like, whoa, that's such a huge difference of understanding of it. And since I'm so fascinated about psychology and how our brains work, any person from then on that told me they had ADHD, I would just ask them a ton of questions because I was so curious about how our brains work so differently. And then as a result, I just started collecting ADHDers in my life. I had a bunch of roommates. I've been married to one who has ADHD. I have all of these people in my life, in my world, that have ADHD. They're some of my favorite people in the world, let's be honest.
You're collecting them.
Yes. Yes. And so a few years ago, I had a couple of roommates with ADHD, and they kept asking me, when are you going to do your workshop on ADHD? And I was like, what do you mean? I don't have ADHD. Why would I do that? But then I started to see where I was teaching them about their own ADHD, and I was like, oh. So I did, and now this is what I do.
I love your story. This is so great because I did not know it. Also, the first thing, so there was an ADHD simulation. I imagine like when people go into space, like astronauts in training, and they're in a simulation to do anti-gravity and stuff. And that's what I was imagining. It's like, an anti-gravity simulator, which is not the case at all. But thank you so much for sharing, Jess. And I'll introduce myself really quickly. If you are new here, welcome. If you've been here a little while, also welcome. My name is Gaia, and I'm an ADHD coach and specialist. And what the theme of today's live is, and what I focus on primarily, is natural solutions to your ADHD. So it's no longer a struggle. You're like, oh, I have my symptoms under control. And for me, I've dissipated my symptoms so much that I don't resonate with ADHD. And I use different terms for that. But really, what I mean is my symptoms are so decreased that, yeah, life is fairly damn simple and lots of ease within that. Of course, there's still, bad days like any human, but with decreasing your symptoms, you create a whole toolkit of resources you can go back to. You're like, the symptoms coming up, no worries. I got this. I got my toolkit. So today I want to talk about just natural solutions for ADHD and also just our top 10 tips for ADHDers. What we believe you need to know what's, helped me and what you've seen help with your own clients or the people you collect in your life, Jess. I just
Excellent.
imagine your home, all these ADHDers are just there, like, it's my collection. I love it. Okay, so do you want to start off with just let's just be super basic. Like, what do we even mean by natural solutions? Like, what does that mean to you? What do you talk to your clients about? I mean, no wrong answer.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm a firm advocate of like, do what works for you. So for some people, meds work. But other people, they don't want to take meds. And so when we're talking about natural solutions, I'm thinking not medicine. So we're talking about maybe supplements, maybe diet, maybe exercise framework, like um like seeing how you view yourself and your world of ADHD and what that means to you versus what the reality might be, or like all these different frameworks. And then also like I do a lot with frameworks because
We're
we
totally gonna dive into those. Yes,
yes.
high level. I love what you said. It's not using medication. And same. When I think of natural solutions, I always talk about natural long-term solutions. And I don't say like, okay, it's natural versus meds. Because I have worked with clients where they've been on meds and they got off because they're like, that helped me be able to even implement and stick to natural solutions, right? Talk with your doctor. Everyone's different. It's what works for you. But natural solutions, in my opinion, when I say solutions in long term, doesn't mean more checklists or more timers, but
Yes.
rather, yeah, those are really bad. I look at them as band aid solutions where they're like, that's going to help you in the moment. It's something that's like a little hack that like you may have the long-term solution in place for like this just like solidifies it's like the cherry on top, just makes it a little bit easier, but I don't need it, I don't depend on it, it's not going to carry me through my life with so much ease. It's looking at the foundational stuff. Yeah. So I know we're going to go into a framework here.
Yeah, well, and it's like that's the thing that I talk about too when anyone who gets on a call with me when we're talking about maybe working together. I'm like, I am not going to put band-aids on stuff. Like, I'm not the person who's going to be like, here, use this magical planner. It's going to change your whole world. No, it's not. Like, it's
Straight up.
not. It's just not. So, like, let's talk about your internal world because a lot of what's going on in your internal world is a reflection of what's going on externally. And that's where I think the magic is.
Yeah, and I have this beautiful analogy that I use across all my coaching where like a house, the foundation of a house, it's so important because if your home is built on a rocky foundation, like your home can't stand, it can't stay long term, it won't last. Then your foundation, like you said, is your inner world and the inner work, the mindset, whatever you want to call it. It's like we need to look at that first because that's a foundation, and then I think of the house, like the structure of the house, it sits on the foundation like systems. It's like, cool, I got a foundation, we're always like working on this, but the system's like this framework that you can like live your life in and all your individual priorities and tasks and jobs within your life. You have a system or systems for each to keep you on track, but still very personalized to you because everyone's house is different. And then the furniture, the decor is like those hacks, those the checklists, the timers. We're like, it's just the cherry on top. You're like, I have a great house and a great foundation, but you know what? I just love this plant over here. But next week I may not like it anymore and then switch it out. And that's like the hacks.
Yes. And like I haven't used this analogy before. I love it. So like if building on that is like the foundation that you have, oftentimes like clients come to me and it's like your foundation has cracks in it. And so we got to fix the cracks before you can do any of the other stuff, cuz like you said, the plant, the timers and stuff, those are like extra things. And if you're trying to build those things on top of cracked foundation, it's all gonna fall apart.
Yeah. Let's use an example. Like, let's just like exercise we talk about or nutrition. Or is there something that's coming to mind for you? Let's just like jam on an example.
Um,
Let's
no,
do
what
exercise. Exercise is just such a common one where there's a million exercise hacks out there, like work out as soon as you wake up, follow this 30-day plan, sleep in your workout clothes, all these different things. And some of those are hacks and some of them are systems, like a system being like work out as soon as you wake up in the morning and doing that, every day. But if your mindset is, I hate exercise, I'll never like exercise, I've never stuck to exercise, I can't do the workout properly, this is going to be painful, no matter like if you sleep in your workout clothes, set your alarm and wake up, you're never going to stick with it because your mindset is like, this is going to be terrible, I'm a failure and it's not going to work. So it's not going to work.
Yep. So then you have to like talk about what those things are, where they've come from, where like do you have trauma around it? Maybe you do. But then also like not only do you like might have trauma around it, but like what was exemplified in your life? Like and how do you view your body? How do like what is your goal with exercise, right? Because a lot of people's goal is like, well, I need to work out in order to stay thin. But like for an ADHDer,
Why?
regardless of your body weight, like the exercise is for your brain. Like I've seen over and over again where like ADHDers, if you're like moving your body, it helps, especially for women whose brains are like, it's almost like the hyperactivity is internal for a lot of women and it's in your brain. And so being able to move your body helps slow down that brain so that you can not drive yourself crazy. So it has nothing to do with like your it does have something to do with your physical health, but almost in this scenario, it's like it's not related to weight or your physical health. It's about your mental health.
Ah, and like you said, that, and to use like a term that I think is what you're getting at, it's like finding the root. It's like why, I should say why, 'cause it sounds like we you're broken, we need to know why. But if we're having these thoughts like exercise is painful, so it'll never work for me, I'm a failure, like whatever may come up for you, it's like, okay, well, you weren't born with those like thoughts. You weren't like come out of the womb, you're like, exercise is terrible. Like that doesn't happen. So it's like, where did what did they come from? Like, how did they become such a strong belief in your life? And like you said, Jess, like, could be through a traumatic event. It could just be what you saw modeled in your life. Could just be societal. Could even be just like generational. So your parents are modeling that, or your caregivers, but that's what they saw modeled, and their parents saw modeled, and whatnot. And I want to throw this in there too. And I know this is something I shouldn't say no, but I believe this is something that you follow too, where there's nothing wrong with whatever beliefs you have. Like you're right? Like you're completely human. You could have the belief that exercise sucks, or you can have the belief that exercise is awesome, but like going to work sucks and I'm a terrible employee. Like everyone has different beliefs, but it's just understanding these are beliefs based on like something. I picked it up somewhere. They don't have to belong to me anymore. And I think that is powerful in its own. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. Well, and some of the reframe too is like, well, you can still think that exercise sucks, but what is your definition of exercise then? Because maybe you exercise sucks to you is like going to the gym and lifting weights, but like you could go play tag with the kids, your kids, if you have kids, and that's exercise. Does that suck? Like so finding ways to move your body in a way, and you don't have to call it exercise. You could call it body movement. You could call it, this is for my mental health. Like whatever the thing, the obstacle that's in the way of the thing that's going to serve you is what you get to get creative about.
Yeah, and if anything, that's where we thrive at with ADHD, being creative with our brains. So, what all of this to say, like we're using exercise as a beautiful example because it's super common, is we could tell you the exact workout plan to follow. We could tell you when to do it and how to put it into your planner and how to set the timers, but it won't matter if your beliefs aren't aligned with it. But that's
Yeah.
okay because you can change your beliefs. You can reframe certain things, and this is also very individualized. Like it's not like everyone's like belief comes from this one thing. Like some people could have the same belief of like exercise is painful, but it comes from two completely different, scenarios or circumstances. And this is where like coaching or like doing that deep inner work is powerful because you find out what it is for you specifically. And like you said, Jess, it's like the cracks in the foundation and setting that foundation. It's now diving into that and changing it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say on like the inner work part? Um, yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback off of something you said earlier, it's like just because there's cracks in the foundation doesn't mean that you're broken or there's something wrong with you. And that's something that I teach all the time. I say to my clients and everywhere on social media, I'm like, you are perfect, whole, and complete. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. ADHD doesn't make you broken. It means the cracks in the foundation, whether you have ADHD or not, everyone has some sort of cracks, like whatever trauma or different things that they're moving through and going through. And so it's like it's relative to you, and sometimes it's related to ADHD, sometimes it's not. But getting at that doesn't mean that you're broken or that you need to be fixed. Fuck that. You do not need to be fixed. You don't need a coach to swoop in and like, no, that is not what his coaching is at all. Because I've had some interesting conversations with people lately about their misunderstanding of what coaching is. And so, like, no, that is not our job to like hand you, like you just said, I'm not, if I hand you a workout plan, it doesn't fucking matter if like you like it. Like, even if we tell you what to do, like sometimes we want people to tell us what to do, but like if we did, your ADHD is going to be like, well, I don't want to fucking do that. So you're not going to. So what's the point?
Yeah. I always tell people if you want something where it's very like black and white, you can Google it. Like I'll say save the time, the money, like just go Google it. The work that like a coach does, what kind of we're segueing into that a little bit, is is diving deeper of like hey, what's actually blocking you and that's specific to you, right? Setting that foundation which starts internally.
Yeah.
And I put this at the top of my paper to even mention it. You already mentioned it, which I knew we would. That you're not defective, you're not broken, and that in its own is a powerful natural solution because it gives you, if anything, hope that you're like it's not going to be a struggle forever. It doesn't have to be, and that you weren't born inherently like unworthy. You weren't born broken or defective. We're all born like worthy, equally worthy, all with our unique gifts. What I believe ADHD is partly developmental delays in the brain that are then exacerbated by life circumstances. So our brain is wired differently, but then your lived experiences are can exacerbate what's already in the brain. So because of that, it's like, oh, okay, well, again, my lived experiences are just different than someone else's. Like there's no one in the world's perfect, so no one's lived experiences is perfect.
Yeah.
And I know for me, that was like, huh, okay, cool. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong. It's just my life is different to someone else's, so I need to go about it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And when you like when you're able to reframe the like, okay, if I'm not broken and this isn't something that needs to be fixed, it's like, how is this serving me? Because this is an epiphany I had yesterday. Um,
Sure.
I have glasses, right? Is that inherently bad or wrong? Am I broken because I have
Well, my honest opinion. I'm just kidding.
right? And I've had glasses since I was 5 years old. Now, one thing that is interesting about my eyesight is that I'm farsighted, which means I can see far away but not up close, which is not normal for people who have glasses. It's usually the opposite. So, yesterday I was up on the roof of my building looking at the stars, and I was like, I live in the city, so you can't see that many stars, but because I'm farsighted, I can see more stars than a lot of other people can. So I started to like count them to see how many I could see, And I wasn't with anyone, so I couldn't like compare it to somebody else. But I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But then I don't know if you all believe in God, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it. For me, I like to call it spirit. It's like spirit was like your outer reflection of your glasses is how your internal world works. So for me, I also just kind of know shit before it happens. I'm a knower. So I know things before it happens, but then the closer that it gets to me, I can't see it anymore. And then that's the time that I start to like panic and freak out and not trust myself anymore because I'm like, I knew this thing was going to happen and it hasn't happened. So maybe it's not supposed to, or blah, 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 all these things. But then I get surprised when it does still show up. And part of that is because my design, I was built to be able to know things, but also to be surprised because I delight in being surprised. And it's hard to surprise a person who just knows shit. So to be able to experience both, I get to have the knowing and the surprise. So at some point, I stop seeing the thing. I'm like, oh, then my vision isn't broken. I just felt more deeply in love with the fact that I have glasses and my eyes are perfect as they are. And I get to accept that as part of who I am. And I'm so grateful for that as a result. And so when I'm talking to ADHDers, like that level of acceptance and love and gratitude for your ADHD, because you get to recognize that there's something here about this that gets to serve you. And I love talking about ADHD as like a superpower because I see as a non-ADHDer, I can see so many of the beautiful things about the ADHDers in my world. And I'm like, man, my brain can't do that. That's amazing. I call my ADHD friends all the time because something that would take me days to do, you guys can do in 30 seconds. And I'm like, just wow, just amazed.
I love this story and even metaphor per se, because there's so many things I picked out of that cross over so beautifully. And one theme is that ADHD often, can look at it as a negative thing, right? A lot of us are really struggling with it. Also, can be one of our greatest gifts. And I believe that ADHD is a developmental delay, but also exacerbated. Like symptoms are made worse by our lived experiences, but a lot of our symptoms were also used to cope, because if you like went through something very stressful as a kid or traumatic, and let's say like are constantly restless, like always on guard, it's like, well, maybe your nervous system was keeping you safe, keeping you vigilant, because maybe you were in an unsafe environment. And that's just one example. But there's ways our ADHD symptoms were helping us in
Yeah.
certain circumstances. And even now, like, yes, I've dissipated my symptoms that I struggled with that were causing roadblocks for me. But there's a lot of things in the ADHD I love, like you mentioned, like I can whip like a presentation together with a PowerPoint and like notes in like 30 minutes flat. Like, no problem, I got this. So there's things that I absolutely love about myself. And it's almost like taking away the label, the diagnosis, be like, I'm just a human with unique gifts that I get to share with the world.
Yeah.
And no, when that was true for me, just taking away that diagnosis, it was liberating even more than getting the diagnosis, because I'm like, oh, I'm just a human. And that felt really good for me. Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
go into some more natural solutions. So first of all, just like having the hope that you're not going to struggle forever, that you are not defective, that you're so worthy and have such beautiful, unique gifts for the world. Very high level stuff. And I mean, big natural solution. I'm going to break this down a little bit of doing the internal work. And when I work with clients, like nervous system regulation is a huge one, along with inner child work. There's different terms for it. It's a big one I work with, and shadow work too. Is there anything else you want to add to like the inner work?
Oh man. Yeah. It's a very similar, like we I feel like we coach probably really similarly. Um, I don't think there's anything else to add at this point.
I guess like a CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, like the
Oh yeah.
subconscious, yeah, limiting belief work is a big one. I think it's the stuff that we do just in tandem with all our coaching. And we're like, oh yeah, that's a separate thing in its own, technically. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even talk about the labels of the different things.
Yeah.
I just flow with it, so I forget sometimes, like, what they're called.
you're watching this, you're like, I have no idea what any of those are. You also don't need to know. When I first learned them, I was like, oh, I just know this is working, and this it will feel like you're. I mean, connecting to your body is a big one, but it's gonna just feel like you can start to separate yourself from your ADHD and from your ego of like, oh geez, I'm not just this brain or this voice or this negative voice in my head. That I'm something else. This body. I can separate the two, and that was just a huge realization when I started.
Yeah, so all these, like, beautiful big words that you are using, like, an example of, like, nervous system regulation is a breathing exercise. Or, one thing that I love to do is have somebody, if you name your ADHD and view as, like, part of who you are, but a little separate, you could have conversations with your ADHD.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and let's even talk about. Okay, so I'm gonna segue into like what I call the core four. These are like the four foundational natural solutions that I say like master these because these will have a significant impact on your ADHD and are just available to us. And
Mm.
then I think a lot's gonna come up for us in this is nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management or nervous system regulation. Yeah. Do you want to just let's talk about like stress management slash nervous system regulation? Because I know okay, there's probably maybe two, maybe three groups. I was in the group that I'm like, I'm not stressed. I was so stressed. Like my body was reacting so much. Like, I don't know why I have all these like symptoms of high stress. I'm not stressed. That was me. And then there's a team of like, I'm so stressed. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just talk to either of those groups right now?
Yeah. Well, let's like, what is define stress?
That's a good one. Yeah. So I'm was in camp. I'm not stressed. I'm great because what I saw in my life, I was like, oh, this is normal. This is all the stuff I'm doing is totally normal. I should actually be doing more. So there's no way I should be stressed. I'm, normal adults, and I'm actually not even reaching normal adult standards. So there's no reason I should be stressed.
Mhm.
So what I learned through that was a very hard lesson through that. And now, I mean, after the fact, is everyone's like stress levels is individualized because it's not just we're all baseline, ooh, this is stressing me out. We all start at different points. Like if I was starting from a very dysregulated nervous system to start with, meaning I was already like just stressed from childhood, and then to throw in, trying to quote unquote keep up with the world when I had ADHD and didn't know it, I was like, oh, I'm not even in a solid foundation to start with.
Yeah.
So I was already just a mess. And that was my baseline. So I didn't even recognize that.
Yeah.
So stress can show up in, insomnia, in like IBS, like stomach issues, in like always getting sick, in not recovering from even like workouts or sickness or an injury. So many different ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
Overwhelm and like blowing up at somebody, or like the emotional part of it too is there as well. Like, uh yeah. So like depending on your definition of stress, that's why I asked you to define it, because different people, it's so interesting our like words and how people use them, because people will say I'm so stressed out, but what they define as stress might not be something that's stressful to me. Like you said, it's all relative and individualized to that one person, each person. So like learning what those stressors are, then you can start to do some reframing and be like, okay, what can I do to shift this in my life, in my world? So if one of those things is like, this is a really stupid example.
never? Nothing's ever stupid.
When I was married, something that stressed me the fuck out is when my um ex-husband would not put the scissors back Because when you need scissors, you need them immediately for something very small. And I don't have ADHD, right? So for me, I don't really misplace things. So my creative solution to this was I just bought like 6 pairs of scissors and I hid one of them from him. So I always knew where one pair was.
I freaking love
So
this.
yes. So that's an example of something that stressed me out. So when you learn about those different things in your life, but like you said, you have to know where the stress, like that you're experiencing stress. So like what's happening in your body when you're stressed? Okay, maybe your heart rate is raised, maybe you're a little shaky, maybe your blood pressure goes up, maybe you're feeling like nervousness in your stomach, but you have to be connected to your body to even understand that you're feeling stress in the first place.
And what I like to look at this as, because when you Google like natural ADHD like solutions, it's gonna be like exercise, like stress management, like these terms are like, okay, cool, like obviously, right? Like if managing stress is a good thing, we know that, like just in the depths of our knowledge. And that's why I do like to use the term nervous system regulation, even if you don't understand it, because um I find it easier to explain where think of stress management because it's so personalized depending where your starting point is. Is like how fast can you come back to a sense of calm and groundedness in your body? And
Mm,
I look at that, it's like how fast can you do that? And if you can do that, and how long can you stay there? And the faster you can do that, the longer you can stay there, it's like, sweet, you're probably pretty regulated where you are managing stress well. So for some people, such as myself, I couldn't even do that. Like I,
yeah.
and some ADHDers, if you're, like me, I couldn't even find calm in my body. If I could, I couldn't keep it because I
Mm,
was so disconnected my body, very dysregulated nervous system. So even small things that the scissors would could completely like throw me off. And for you, you're like stressing me out, but I can come back to calm. Like I don't know if that's true for you, but something like that. So a question you can ask yourself, like, am I managing stress? It's like, okay, do you and if you don't know, like literally ask yourself out loud, it's like, am I calm and grounded right now? Like honestly,
mm,
if you're a no, that's okay. You're just you know where you're at. You're like, okay, cool. Or if something happens in your day, you're like, am I calm and grounded? It's like, no. Do I know how to come back to calm and grounded? It's like, no. That's also okay. It just gives you a starting point. You're like, okay, this is something I need to work on. And because with all of the solutions, you may be mastering exercise, nutrition, and sleep, but you're like, that's stressful. Oh God, that is a hard one. And now you know where to focus your efforts.
yes. And the key thing when you're asking yourself observation questions is to recognize it's an observation question and not a morality question and not a right or wrong question and not a question that is designed to get you into a shame spiral. So if the answer is no, I'm not calm, or no, I don't know how to be calm, that doesn't make you bad, that doesn't make you wrong, that doesn't make you because I see this happen all the time with ADHD clients is that shame spiral is so real. And so you make judgments on yourself based on answers to questions like that. And so if you can come back to this is just an observation, this is not a judgment.
Yeah.
That
And
is really helpful.
you can ask yourself like, okay, well, I may judge myself on this, but knowing this is helping me live a life of less struggle and a life of more ease, like, cool. The more honest I am, the more I'm helping myself. And even so, these core four, the exercise, nutrition, stress management, sleep, it's a balancing game because you're not a robot. You're gonna go through seasons of life, like especially if a life change, if you have a kid, if you get married, if you like lose your job or get a new job. Even for myself, like with exercise, I'm like, oh, I got have an injury or something throws you off. You're like, oh, something I was mastering before is now actually gonna need more focus right now. But the other ones I have pretty good. And that's okay. It's just like this little juggling act. Or maybe one season you're like, I just personal goal, want to get really fit. Great, you're focusing a lot on that. Next season, maybe you're not focusing on exercise, so your fitness level decreases. That's okay because remember, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about like managing so they feel good to you and balanced to help your ADHD. And then your personal goals can be layered in among that too.
Yeah. One of the things that I say all the time is consistency is overrated. Because of what you just said, because I feel like, especially in the ADHD community, there's, like, this concept of consistency that's like, "I have to be consistent, I have to be consistent," and it's like but the idea of consistency is doing the same thing every day for the rest of your life. When you think about that actually, you would hate that. Like ADHDers would hate that. You get bored so quickly, and that's not something you want to do anyways. And there are seasons in life. And so giving yourself that grace and compassion is so important when you're going through those different seasons and recognizing like, oh, okay, I broke my ankle. I'm probably not going to work out for a few weeks. That's okay. Or how can I work out without using my leg? Or, you get to be creative but it's not like this. Oh my gosh, I'm not perfect and I'm failing.
And this rolls into the next, natural solution, which is really the house on the foundation we built with the inner work is systems. I freaking love systems. I use them like so. It's such an integral part of my life. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a system. Like you don't even notice because they're just so ingrained because it's like your house. It
Mm,
is a structure. So yes, consistency. It's a great term, and I love how you said that. Like consistency, sometimes where like it needs to look this exact way, and that was myself too. And it's really hard to give yourself permission to change it if it's not working anymore. But a system gives you like the structure, but the flexibility. It's like built-in permission to be like, I can change that. Like, for example, say your system and systems can look so different. Check out my channel. I talk a lot about systems and lay it out exactly what some examples of them. But exercise, it can be like working out as soon as you wake up in the morning. But the type of workout may change every single day because you're like, I don't want to do the same workout. I want to change it. And I want to go for a walk. And then I want to go swimming. Or maybe your system is you're like, oh, I always swim on Mondays, but the time changes, right? Like you're giving yourself some structure to be anchored to, and then you have that creativity to flow within that. So say you're like always working out first thing in the morning for an hour and a half. You're like, this is a big focus of mine, crushing life with your with your exercise goals. And then 4 months later, you're like, I've reached my goals, but now I have a new job. I want to focus on there. You're still working out first thing in the morning, but now it's maybe for 30 minutes, or maybe it's just a walk, but now you're focused somewhere else. So I love systems. They keep you consistent for as long as you want to be, but you can
yes.
still then focus on the priorities or goals or where you want to in that season of your life.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things when I do talk about consistency is like instead of being so zoomed into like I'm gonna do yoga for an hour every single day, it's like, okay, the zoomed out consistency is I
Yes.
want to move my body 5 days a week, but it doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to be the same time every day unless that serves you. But like or you're going seasons, and something that I love to do for myself are challenges because I get bored too. So I'll do like a 90-day sit-up challenge or like whatever because that works for me, but you get to like figure out what works for you and what supports your brain.
Yes, yes. And I don't know if it's a solution, but needs to be said. Like you said so beautifully in there, of, like zooming out, and that's like a theme that I pulled through I guess my life, but has been or had a huge impact on my ADHD as of like this year. Of like if we just zoom out for a moment, like just zoom over the minutia, because that's often what gets us in the second guessing, the negative thought spirals, the overwhelm, the paralysis. 'Cause we're like, this specific detail, like this workout tomorrow morning has to happen, and it didn't happen yesterday. We forget to like, whoa, if I was 90 years old looking back on that day or that week in my life, this doesn't matter. Like when we zoom out, I feel it that's where it's like we feel like we're in control of our ADHD again. It's like, oh, okay. This is no big deal. Like, I trust myself. Look at my track record in my entire life. I can do this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another huge thing is building trust with yourself.
Yeah.
That is
Noticing
something.
patterns and building trust. I know that was a theme that came up. You didn't say it, but you like alluded to patterns. Yeah.
because that's one of the things that I talk with about all the time because depending on your experience, a lot of the people that come to me um, have been told their whole life, you're disorganized, you can't get your shit together, you can't blah, 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 blah. And so not only are these stories that you have internally, but you've had them externally. And so then it's just perpetuated over and over and over again. And so then you're like, well, I can't trust myself. Nobody else can trust me either. So then you lose faith in being able to do anything in yourself. And so you have to show proven times where you are able to trust yourself. And by following some systems and showing yourself and reminding yourself, because you'll forget that you did, like, yes, you didn't work out today, but didn't you work out the last 30 days in a row? And
That's
maybe
like the one
today,
reminder you should be creating your phone of how awesome you are.
yes.
Thank you. Like, yeah, no other reminders are needed except that you are awesome, like so awesome, and like your track record, like you said,
Yeah.
because this is again a huge theme of the zooming out and the self trust, where I don't want to say this, like self trust, like any trust, is something you're always working on, always strengthening, always building. Even for myself, I'm like, I trust myself. I've had systems, look at my track record. It is so easy when your ego pipes up. It's like, but you kind of screwed it up last time. And then you start to falter. You're like, what if I can't do this? What if I don't remember the doctor's appointment? Or what if this happens? And I have kind of a fun example. And fun because it's so real. Like when I say fun, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel this. When I was talking with a gal and she's like, my internet company always overcharges me. So I always need to double check my bills and it just causes me so much stress. I was like, oh my God, like how often has this happened? What happened like twice? I was like, okay, let's zoom out. It's like, how long have you had internet for? Like, how many months have you billed total? Like, many years. And it's been twice.
Mm.
And so now you're like, oh my God, I need to be checking my bills. It takes so long. It's so stressful. It's like the self trust thing. It's like, say you are sticking to your workout system for like years. You're like, but yesterday I didn't work out. I'm a failure. Right? We forget all of the times that we were like showed up for ourselves. So it can be
Yep.
almost every day being like, what am I proud of myself for? Like what did I actually like do today that felt really freaking good for me? Where did I keep a promise to myself?
The first thing I do whenever I get on a call with a one-to-one client, the first thing we talk about are wins. And I write them all down because at the end of the time that I have, if it's a 6-month container, I just send you an email with all of your wins from 6 months. It's incredible. And wins, and the thing is, you can't define a win based on how big or small, like there's no relative. It is relative to you. So, like for me, I despise putting my laundry away. So, anytime that I actually do it, I celebrate the fuck out of myself. Like, oh my gosh, I put my laundry away. Yes.
Yes, I as you should. You should make it a fun little game. And I love that. Like celebrating yourself, what you're proud of is also a practice I do with clients. It's like a daily thing. We need to be
Yep.
reminded. If it feels hard to do that, if you're like there's no wins today, then you definitely know that's going to be your focus because there's always wins. Always, 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 always. So if it feels
Always.
hard, as it did for me when I started, I was like, I don't know. That means it's just a muscle to strengthen.
Yeah. And then you start with things like, I woke up today.
Yeah, freaking
I
fantastic.
remembered to brush my teeth. Or I actually ate breakfast.
Like
Or I
crushing it.
drank some water.
Like these are also huge things though. Like you, yeah, waking up, you are freaking important. Have gifts to share. Like love it. These are huge things. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Is there any other natural solutions that we want to that are coming to us? Otherwise, I can type some out if they come to us later.
One that I share often is, and I don't even understand or know all of the science behind it, but I know that taking magnesium is really supportive for
Yeah,
ADHDers.
yeah. That was actually one. There's a list of supplements that I'll put. I have them on. another video, but I'm gonna link them here too. I take magnesium every night. Bisglycinate, but it can be the glycinate. We don't need the bis part, but
Yes, because
glycinate.
there
Yeah,
are
that's the one you
different
want.
types of
Yeah.
magnesium.
It works on your brain, but it's really good to calm you for like restlessness. So take it before bed is beautiful. Helps with like brain muscle tissue recovery as well. Really, really powerful. I take it. Highly recommend it. There's a few other supplements I can put them below, but like omega 3s, zinc, iron, L-theanine. I heard saffron's actually really good. I don't take it personally. Rhodiola. It's another one I take. I mean, probiotics, absolutely. Your gut health is so linked to your overall health and your brain health, of course. And these are all like natural things, right? Like, I mean, of course, check with your doctor and whatnot. We're not doctors and we don't pretend to be the one,
No.
either of us. But I often just self experiment. I'm like, cool, let's just take some magnesium. Do I notice a difference? You know, do I or I don't? And then if
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I did notice a difference, great. Maybe it's something for you.
Yeah. And just to hone in on this like trusting yourself thing, what I have found over and over again is that ADHDers are often very self-aware. And so you can trust yourself in the noticing of whether it's affecting you in a positive or negative way. And with everything, whether you're trying out meds, trying out supplements, trying out this other thing, no matter what anyone else is saying, nobody else is living in your body except you. So you get to trust yourself in the knowing of like, oh, this is not for me.
And to add to that, because I loved how you said that, and I'm very self aware, and I'm like, oh yeah, all these cheers are that you're not wrong. Like
Yes.
if you feel something or if you believe something, you are not wrong because that is true for you.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot too when I share my ADHD beliefs because some people don't agree. I was like, that's fine, but this is true for me based on like what I've seen, my lived experiences, what my coaching peers have seen, other medical professionals have seen. That's true for me, and that's not wrong. So whatever you feel, whatever you experience, if you're trying different solutions, you're like, that did not work for me. That's cool. It wasn't true for you, but something else will be. And when you give yourself that radical, permission to do what works for you, that's when your life is radically also going to change for the better.
Yes.
I love this conversation, Jess. Oh,
Me
I
too.
feel like self-serving. So like, I just want to chat. So what's up? I also realized you live really close to me.
Where do you live?
I know. I'm in BC in Canada.
Oh,
I know, right? Okay. It's on live and people are now gonna know where we live and stalk us. That's cool. Send us mail, please. Send us mail by owl. I'd appreciate that. Alright, so if you have any questions, comments, put them below. I think it's below, and we will definitely answer them. And this has been the Slice Girl. And oh, Jess, what do you have coming up? Where can people find you? Yeah.
yeah. You can find me everywhere. Um, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, website. My website is jessdubose.com. Super simple. I have lots of resources on there. But a thing that I have coming up, I have a free workshop coming up on August 10th. How to harness your ADHD and get stuff done. Yeah, without
No more
buying more
timers.
planners, without setting more timers, and without going into the shame spiral again. So that's happening on August 10th, and the registration is in the link in my bio. Um,
I'll link that below too. Some of your deets, and we'll just like put it in the
Perfect. I'll send you the link. Um, and the thing about like I know in the coaching world, there's like, just like, go to this free thing, and then they just spend the whole time trying to sell you something. That is not my thing. I provide a shit ton of value first, and then there is going to be a thing at the end where I'm telling you about a program I have in case it is supportive for you. If it's not, there's no problem. But I want to make sure that I'm serving my community and giving so much value in those workshops.
I love it because I know you love talking about those things and share those things and coaching and helping. So go to go to her workshop. It sounds freaking fantastic. I was intrigued by it too. I was like, ooh, I like the sounds of this.
Come.
So with that, I'll show up. Hello, tell me your ways. I will link that down below. So just send me it to Jess, and I will do that. And this has been fun. So Jess, I will see you later.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
if watching replay live, I'll see you later as well. Bye.